Upstaged by clothes again. I wasn't thinking on Saturday when my manager was rearranging this corner, and I nearly ended up getting the shelf that I placed you on removed to have another railing. Luckily, my manager recognised the error of my ways before I did. Hi everyone, my name is Charlie and today is the beginning of another reading vlog. It's Monday, it's very foggy outside, which led to a rather interesting experience coming into work, because I found the entire time that I was thinking that it was winter and getting reminded of the episode of Dinner Ladies entitled Fog, which comes from series 2, and if you've been following me for any length of time, you know that I take Fog, Gamble, and whatever the second Christmas episode is called, I can never remember, and have them as a feature-length special regularly, because there's something very big that happens within the show that reaches a climax in these 3 episodes, and it just feels like it could be a film. At least that's what I tell myself when I sit there for an hour and a half and watch it. Sometimes I feel sorry for my grandmother, who had to watch Dinner Ladies Series 2 every single night when I stayed there one summer. Maybe that's why she allowed me to take the video home, just so she'd never have to experience it again. Yesterday was a washout really. It did not stop raining all day, so I stayed in and did a jigsaw. The jigsaw I was talking about at the end of last week's vlog, it's nearly complete. Nobody has really touched it apart from my mother, but she hasn't done much with it, and she usually does the background, and she said to me, this one's just getting away from me, I can't understand it. So I've done the majority myself. I'm not like Karen Puzzles, which is the whole reason I ended up doing this, from watching her YouTube channel and getting enthusiastic about jigsaws again, who would have probably had this done in half an hour and still had time for a cup of coffee at the end of it. No. I have been working on this quite significantly over the last few days, and I've reached a point where I'm glad that it'll be done. Although I have to say, it has gone faster than I thought it would, so yeah. I was getting a bit frustrated though in the afternoon, and when I saw that there was a gap in the rain, I said to my mother, shall we go for a walk through the park? Which means, shall we go for a walk through the park to the pub, have a drink and come home? Which is exactly what we did. And it seemed that everybody else had the same idea, because usually when we've been going there on a Sunday, it has been empty. Now there's every chance that all these people that are inside are there every Sunday, and they were just out at the back. Yeah, it was fine. We got seats. We had 2 pints each, and then we went home and continued with the jigsaw. I did read some more of the Elizabeth Taylor short stories, because I couldn't really settle to beginning anything new when I knew I was doing this jigsaw and my time was going to be taken up with that, and so I just read a few more of the Elizabeth Taylor short stories, and this has been everything that I wanted it to be from an Elizabeth Taylor short story collection. The vignettes where it's just about a character and the way that she'll build a character, and they feel so fully formed and so true to life, and I feel like as a reader I know that person. There are occasions where sometimes I just wish, unlike other short stories where I go on, oh, I wish they focused more heavily on the plot, or I didn't get this. Sometimes I would be fine with just a character study of, and here I'm talking about a very early book I'm talking about a very early story in the collection, Spry Old Character, which is perhaps the second short story after the novella and then this vignette. It's all about this man Harry who's gone blind, and I really liked hearing about his character, but I didn't necessarily care for the ending of the story. And I find that sometimes that she'll do a character study, and sometimes I'll want it to be a bit longer because I'll feel like we didn't get enough, and then sometimes I'm like, no, you could have left it there, I didn't need all this extraneous stuff. So it's a weird one, but I enjoy it because it reminds me of what I like about Elizabeth Taylor's writing, and it just feels like it's adding more. And sometimes I'm reading it and I'm thinking, did you inspire a character? I'm talking to the characters directly here, but did they inspire a character in one of Elizabeth Taylor's novels? This week I didn't finish editing Mistakes Me Murder. That has to happen this week, and the whole reason it didn't happen is because last night in bed I had the revelation that one thing that Brian had brought up that I'd agreed with him about, and I don't know whether Joy mentioned it, but it's something that's definitely been mentioned in the past, is how I forget to describe what characters look like. And I think I mentioned it in this video, and I agree, I do forget that because in my head I know what they look like, so I just forget to bring it to the page. And when I create characters, I start with dialogue before I begin with physical attributes. So to me, I know what these characters look like, but it's not on the page, and so I'm envisaging them in the room, and when people are reading it, like, yeah, this is all well and good, but what do they look like? Which is something that I have to fix, and I'm sure I will eventually. Hopefully this week, because every week it's just been pushed back, and like I said, it was easier than I thought it was, and obviously it was easier than I thought it was. I forgot one of the major things I needed to edit in there. And yeah, just go through, have another glance through it, make sure I'm happy with what I'm going to send to Dane, and then yes, so I'm giving myself another week. And it's just, you know, like, I feel sorry for everybody who's been following this book, waiting for it to come out. I mean, you should feel sorry for me, because I'm like, I've got another 3 of these things to write after this. I tell you, once this 5th book's out and the entire arc of Alice is finished, I might take a break from the cozy crime for a while, although I feel like I can't, because I know how the 5th book ends. Ugh. This is the problem with choosing to write a series. I don't know why some writers do it to themselves. Why Agatha Christie did it to herself. Do you know, I understand why Arthur Conan Doyle killed off Sherlock, and I've only written 1 series with Doris. Maybe that was the problem, choosing to write 2 series back to back. Am I a fool? Probably. Especially if you believe my younger brother. Another thing I did this weekend, antiquarian and vintage books in the window to try and make some money, because we had to make 750 quid on Saturday, and do you want to know something? We did it. It was hard work. One woman came to me and she said, I'm thinking about buying this jacket, and I said to her, don't think about it, buy it, I've got a target to it. And you know what? She did. Anyway, I've got coffee, my volunteers are going to be arriving soon, and it's foggy out there, so let's see how this day goes. I will see you when I see you, and hopefully I'll actually have started reading something. If you hear my neighbour mowing in the background, then I apologise. It's Wednesday and I am not currently reading anything, and I'm getting pretty fed up with it. So the last book that I finished was Maps of Imaginary Towns by S.J. Bradley, which I will be reviewing today on YouTube. And as we know, I wasn't the fondest of that. S.J. Bradley is a great writer, this just wasn't a book for me. So after I read this, I decided, well, I'm at work, I'm busy, let's stick with short stories. So I read some more of the Elizabeth Taylor short story collection that I'm reading from August all the way through to December. So I'll be hitting the 250 page mark of that, and then putting that book aside and reading another 125 pages in October. So after I read that for a couple of days, I decided on Monday that I would pick up 1Q84 by Haruki Murakami, and I read 1 chapter on Monday night. I was going to read that book this week. However, yesterday I decided to focus on the editing of Mistakes Mean Murder because it's not finished and I want it to be done. Like, it was supposed to be done 2 weeks ago, and I know I said that this has been easier than I imagined it would be, and it has been, but it's my time management. Again, I do actually have a lot going on outside of finishing Mistakes Mean Murder, so I have to give myself some allowance of that. But it did mean that yesterday I didn't do much reading. Then in the evening I decided maybe it's the book. So I decided I have recently acquired the Next Wheel of Time book because I was going to take it away with me to Whitby next month. I thought it was a hefty enough tome that if we ever got a rainy day, it's something I could sit down and just hunker down with. I use that word a lot. Maybe I should change this channel, hunkering down with the Heathcotes. The first chapter was 40 pages of that book, and it's quite hefty. And basically it took me 40 minutes to read the entire first chapter, which was then I go to bed and I decide I'm going to try and read a bit of The Vicar of Bullhampton again, because I'm supposed to be reading Anthony Trollope. Basically, we're at that point in the month where I'm looking at the fact that we only have, one full week of the month left. And I'm really looking at that and thinking, I have not read as many books as I wanted to. I think at the time of recording, I have read 3 books this month. I wanted to have read more than that. Basically, I was looking at my TBR earlier and I was thinking, you haven't touched any of those books, really. I've read 1. Oh, no, I've read 2 because I replaced one that was on the original TBR with the short story collection. So I've read 2 of the books that were on my TBR, but I only have 10 books left on my shelves to finish from prior to this year. And part of me is wondering whether I just read some of the short ones that I've acquired since my birthday to try and assuage this feeling of I need to be reading. I don't know what to do. It's one of those quandaries that I'm in. But the editing has been going well. Yesterday I have nearly finished with all of the suggestions that Brian made, and then it's just checking that I've done all of the suggestions from Joy, amongst others. It's just those 2 gave me really big reader reports and I was grateful for them. And then just adding the scenes that I've written to go in there, such as these new ones with the new characters that are being introduced, and so that we see them more and can make more sense of who they are as characters. A bit more clarification. Something that Joy pointed out I did often was that I would start a scene and then go back to show everything that had happened prior to getting to that event, and she said it was confusing, so why don't I just start where the scene starts and then anyway, so that's what's happening with me. It's happening. It's just a stressful time for me. I think that this is who I am. I get worked up when I'm not completing stuff in the time that I want to get them completed, but I'm also aware of if I get too annoyed or too narked at a project or too exhausted, then it's not going to be the best, so I then have to take a break from it. But I want to be reading too. So yeah, let's just say that Wednesday I'm feeling decidedly stressed and like I've got this huge weight and I need it lifted, so that means doing some editing today. That is why you're seeing me in the yellow long sleeve t-shirt again for about the 50,000th time, because these are lazy day clothes and the sun's out, it's quite hot, but I only think I want to do the long walk down the towpath today. I don't think I want to go back to the forest, but if I do go back to the forest, then I end up there. I don't know. Yesterday it was decidedly packed up there because the sun was out, and so I couldn't do the walk that I wanted to do because I couldn't get down to drive and park to do this walk. And so we went up to the lay-by and we did get a nice 40-minute long to an hour. I don't know how long I was out of here. I got there. We did have a nice walk up. We had a nice long walk yesterday, but it's just not one of the walks that's a favourite of mine. I like it. It reminds me of the new children's book idea I had, and I've got a great first line in mind for it now, and I'm when I eventually go back to the children's book I had the idea for in June, I've got a great new starting position, and I think that I need it to emphasise why something is so important to our main character. But I can't think about that because I have to get editing on Alice Valentine done. I'll calm down. I probably shouldn't have caffeinated myself as much today. You can probably tell how stressed I am by the state of the hair, because even I'm annoyed by the hair today. Like, look at it. It's wild. It's doing all that it wants to do. I'll see you on Friday. By winter coats, and it seems like this is going to be the way of things for quite a while, unless I find somewhere else to record in here. It is Friday, and if we are to believe that the universe has ways of showing us to slow down, then I have to go with Wednesday. On Wednesday, I came to you decidedly stressed and irked by the fact that I'd hit a sticking point in the second cozy crime novel, which I'm currently editing. As many of you know, because I haven't stopped harping on about it for a long time now, I planned on finishing my editing within the first week of September, and it didn't happen. It didn't happen in the second week, and I don't know whether it's going to happen now, because it's only in this third week that I've recognised how I can fix something, but also how something needs more explanation. And this has come from speaking to beta readers, reading their read reports and having further conversations, not just with them but with myself, and recognising that if I add in these new scenes that I haven't yet written, because I wrote new scenes and then realised that there were still some things missing, that it will create a fuller narrative and actually make more sense in the grand scheme of things. Despite the fact there's still going to be this convoluted aspect, I believe it's going to make a bit of sense. In fact, one thing that has helped me has been the questions that I've had from the beta readers, because they're like, would this really happen? Is this not a bit nonsensical? And then thinking it over and thinking why it's nonsensical and thinking how it adds into the title. So I'm incredibly stressed out on Wednesday, and I take Sally for a walk. Now, originally I had plans when I was going down the towpath to get onto the towpath and go left and do my long loop, which goes past my old primary school and then come home. And it takes about 2 hours. When we got on the towpath, Sally started walking in the opposite direction, which is the way that we usually go. And I thought, well, if we're going to go this way, then I'll cross over to the reservoir and we can do the loop around there. It adds more time onto the walk and takes it to over an hour then. Great. Because I'm thinking, well, if I want to get more editing done, then I can't be doing that when I'm walking for 2 hours. So, set off on this walk. It's a great walk, fantastic, really enjoying the sun, and we go around some reservoir and Sally's really enjoying herself. She's running up and down. There were a few people who the reservoir was incredibly low, so we're treating the banks like the sea, well, the beach, and that's a bit like, it's still a reservoir. It still looks a bit filthy to me. Also, I think Sally did get confused at one point and think it was the seaside, but I didn't go down far enough for her to check that. So, the sun's out. It's nice and dry everywhere, yeah? I must have found the only patch of mud, and it wasn't on the nice grass that I had walked along, and it was on the rough stone track going back down towards the main road. And I learnt that I could do these splits on Wednesday. Let us just say that, one, I was up very quickly because I don't like being embarrassed, so I was making sure that nobody was around, which they weren't, thankfully. And if anyone did see somebody like do the splits, then just know that I was practicing. I was doing an impression of a banana. I was also incredibly grateful for hypermobile joints, because I feel like if this had been anybody else, well, you know, a normal person, then it would have caused them more injury than it has. However, I did bash my arm, bash my legs, hurt my back, hurt this wrist from where I hit the ground. Basically, there is not a single part of my body that hasn't got some sort of pain at the moment because of this fall. So I am hyped up on painkillers. I won't say hyped up, because the painkillers that I have taken seem to have tired me out, and I think the body recovering is tiring me out as well. So I woke up this morning at 7:10. I hadn't woken up in the night, which is strange for me because I usually always wake up in the night. Admittedly, I didn't fall asleep until 12:30, so I've had 6.5 hours sleep. I was like, I could easily turn back over and go back to sleep. And that's what my body is like craving right now, is just rest and sleep. But we are in work. And I did go to the writers group yesterday, and I took Sally on a short walk that was incredibly easy yesterday. So it's not as though I can't, it's just a bit more painful at the moment, but I've coped with pain before. You know, we're old and arthritic nowadays, so there's that. But I did think maybe this is a sign that we need to slow down. Although it does mean that I haven't actually got any reading done, and I've got a bit further along in the editing. I've now written down plans for the final few scenes that I want to write, and I'm hoping these are the final few scenes, because I keep saying this. But it's just like, I know when something's not right, and so I can write it down and I look at it like, yeah, this is the information that I want to give the reader, but it don't read right. It just reads like I'm giving information to the reader. It doesn't read like it fits into the story. And I was looking for places that I could insert characters, and I remembered one of my favourite things from the first book was people commenting, thinking a specific character was the villain. Well, not the villain, but the antagonist, the murderer, the culprit. And I didn't feel like I'd given them enough of that in here, so there's a couple of scenes I'm adding in to do that. Somebody said to me earlier this week, I'm never going to be happy. I'm one of those people who'll never be happy with a piece of fiction, and the kind of thing is that they're a little bit right. They're a little bit right. I don't think I will ever be happy with something, but I can be content enough to send it to Dane and get it edited, and I'm not there yet. And yesterday I was all like, do I push this book back to February and do a whole thing of it's never been 5 years? And I don't know, because like November I'm not going to be able to do a launch of the book, because November and December are the busiest times in this shop, and also my manager's off for most of November, so there'd be no way of doing a proper launch. So do I wait till 2025, scratch that thing that was in Shepherd's Delight, delete it, re-upload the manuscript for that, and I don't know. That's where we are today. And reading wise, I did say what I said I was going to do, and I read a shorter book. Haven't finished it yet, but it's A Helping Hand by Celia Dale. It's nice, short and dark. It's what I wanted, and I'll talk more about it when next I see you. It's very difficult not to feel upstaged by the very large coats at the moment. We might have to find a different corner, or at the very least find a way of moving stuff around. It's very bulky in this corner at the moment, amongst all of the winter coats and the jumpers and everything that has returned to the rails after, well, 6 months since we moved over to summer stock. It's Saturday, and today is the day in which I'm rounding everything off. So yeah, We didn't finish editing the book this week, and we didn't read anything. Well, we didn't finish reading anything. I started on A Helping Hand by Celia because I really enjoyed Sheep's Clothing earlier in the year. And A Helping Hand isn't really doing it for me at the moment. It's 180 pages, and it kind of feels a bit rambly, like everything that the author wanted to do could have been done with fewer pages. I've got 40 pages left to read this evening, and of the many pages I left last night, I left last night's pages feeling a bit like, are we still talking about this? When are we actually going to get towards anything? There's a lot of telling over showing, which I think was very stylistic of the time, but I felt like Sheep's Clothing, when I read that, had much more of a strong voice and the characters were going off and doing their own things, whereas in this book we're stuck in the central location of the one house. Maybe the author wanted to emulate the victim's struggle of being trapped in this house by trapping us in the house as well. It's a shame, because I did really enjoy that other book when I read it, and maybe it's unfair of me to compare the two to each other, but given that they came from the same author, I find myself unable not to. So that was an unfortunate one that has been a disappointment. I'm glad to have read it actually, and I can think of people that I would recommend it to, especially a few people who've come into the shop recently and told me that they're reading books by female writers from this era, and I'm like, oh great, I've got this book, you can have it. Yesterday I did recommend Sheep's Clothing over this one to someone who was after a specific type of book, but I will read more Celia Dale in future and see how I feel about her other works. This one just hasn't been a favourite of mine. And then I think that's it. I think that's basically it. I am going to try my darndest to try and get Mistakes Mean Murder done tomorrow. It will mean trying to get some scenes written, and when I send them off today, and they might be in a bit more of a rough draft stage. Well, maybe not a rough draft, I never do a rough draft. Yeah, so I just need to get the book away from me, because I might have a tendency to overwork it if I look at it for too long. The big chapters needing changing are the reveal chapter and the chapters that I moved from the middle of the book to the end of the book, because a lot of questions I received about the book came from those scenes that moved from the middle to the end, talking about why is this scene here, didn't we already have this? And I think maybe I replaced it earlier on and didn't realise when I moved it. I think it could all be done with moving a few bits of dialogue or something, I don't know. But I'll find out as I try. I imagine that you're probably fed up of hearing about the editing. I don't know. Tough. Anyway, I am going to go and have some coffee, and I will see y'all when I see you. That's not how I end this video. If you would like to talk about anything I've talked about in this video, then please feel free to do so in the comments. I hope that you've enjoyed this video, because until next time, that is all.